Okay, so we're on the First Amendment. We talked a little bit last week about the First Amendment, in some general terms, what kind of speech is more protected, and all that good stuff. I want to start by talking about issue spotting. This is an easy issue to spot. If the government's messing around with people's speech, then you have a speech problem. There are three different types of fact patterns you want to look for, okay? I call these the three excuses, right? Whenever the government's messing around with somebody's speech, you got to figure out, what are they doing? Number one, are they flat out punishing speech, arresting somebody for what they said, that kind of thing. There are three types of speech that the Supreme Court has held do not constitute protected speech, right? It's not protected speech under the First Amendment. Those are, first of all, incitement, second of all, obscenity, and third, fighting words. Doesn't matter what order you put them in, right? But that's, again, it's incitement, obscenity, fighting words are the three categories of not protected speech. So the government can punish those, and you don't have a First Amendment problem. So the first excuse the government would have is, this speech, it was okay what we did because it's not protected to begin with. That's a pretty good argument if they can make it. The second excuse that the government would come up with is, look, we didn't punish somebody because of what they said or the message. We punished somebody because of where they said it, how they said it, when they said it. That's called a time, place, manner restriction. And I talked about that last week, right? You can't be shouting in the middle of the street in the middle of the night about your political views in a residential neighborhood. So you got to look out for that type of fact pattern, right? The government's saying we're just moving it around. The third type of fact pattern is where the speech involves some kind of conduct. That's pretty easy to conceptualize, right? A lot of times we express ourselves through doing something. If those of you who are prone to road rage like I am, if you get cut off in traffic, sometimes you have a message for the person who did it, right? And you don't do that by speaking orally. You do that by sending a signal. When we get to that, that's called symbolic speech, right? Symbolic speech is speech that occurs through conduct, and the government can argue we weren't targeting the speech, we were targeting the conduct, right? The conduct was harmful, so that's what we were targeting. So that's your general overview. The beauty of this, doing this by video, is you can pause, rewind, right, whatever you need to do to get that. Obviously, I've got some slides that are going along with the video, so you can look at those. We're going to start with the issue of when speech is not protected. So let me repeat. There are three categories, remember categories, three categories of speech that are not protected even though it's speech. If the speech, right, that the government has punished does not fit into one of those three categories, then it is protected speech. So please keep that clear. There are only three categories. The court is very strict about this. There are three categories of speech that is not protected. If it doesn't fit into one of these three categories, then it is protected, assuming that it is speech. So we're going to go through those categories one at a time. We're going to start with incitement, okay? Incitement, the leading case for incitement, and you need to find in your book, I don't have my book in front of me, the Brandenburg case. I'm sorry, before I do that, I want to talk about selective incorporation. We talked about selective incorporation early in the term. We've been reviewing it. It's reviewed frequently in the red flags that are posted up in Canvas. We didn't really need the doctrine of selective incorporation until now, when we've gotten to the First Amendment, right? You have to remember the First Amendment does apply to the states through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to throw that out there before we get into the substance here. Okay, so back to what I was saying, incitement. Make sure you turn to your Brandenburg case as we talk about this. Incitement, first of all, make sure you spell it right. That's not I-N-S-I-G-H-T. There's nothing more annoying than reading that on a blue book. But incitement is incitement to illegal activity, right? Here, the harm outweighs any benefit to the speech. If the speech is going to cause lawlessness, the government can punish it. But again, the court has been quite strict about this. So be careful about incitement. These are elements, right? And here they are. First, this is right out of the Brandenburg case. We're going to talk about what are the elements of incitement. So if one of these is missing, then it's not incitement, and it cannot be punished as incitement. Number one, there has to be advocacy. The speaker has to be asking somebody to do something. That's what advocacy means. Number two, that advocacy has to be for a lawless act, right? Obviously, whatever you advocate has to be something that's illegal. You can't be arrested for advocating that everybody go to McDonald's and stuff their face with Big Macs. There's nothing lawless about that, even if it's a bad idea. Thirdly, the imminence factor, right? The harm has to be imminent, meaning it's going to happen right now. So you're advocating to do something right now with no delay. Finally, you have to look at the situation, the circumstances, and the crowd. It would have to be under circumstances where the illegal act is likely to occur. So for example, if I were to tell a law school class, let's go throw stones at passing traffic, that's probably not going to be incitement, because you're a bunch of grown adults with college degrees who need to pass character and fitness. You're not likely to follow me and do that. So even if I said to do that, and it's illegal, and I wanted to do it now, it's not likely to occur. Let's apply that quickly to Brandenburg. In the Brandenburg case, you have this KKK idiot who gave a speech saying if Congress, the President, the Supreme Court continues to oppress white people, that's his problem, right? He's a KKK, again, he's a KKK, I won't say it. He says if, the Congress, the President, Supreme Court continues to oppress white people, then there's going to have to be, and catch this word that he uses right in his speech, revengeance. Revengeance. You should be laughing right now because revengeance is not a word. Now we got a few problems, right? If we're going to apply these elements to that speech. Of course, he was arrested for that speech. Number one, to say that in the, maybe some revengeance might have to be taken. It's not clear he's advocating anything. It's not clear that he's asking anybody to do anything. So you have a problem there. Number two, we have to find out whether revengeance is illegal, right? Because it has to be an illegal act that you're advocating. Well, this guy was so stupid that he stupided his way out of an incitement arrest because he used a word that's not a word, right? And revengeance, we don't know what revengeance means because it's not even in the dictionary. It could mean something bad, it could mean something violent, or it could just mean, a march on Washington, which would not be unlawful. Imminent, huge problem in Brandenburg, right? The threat was conditional. I hate to bring it back to contracts, but remember, conditions precede it, right? If I'm threatening, assuming you're threatening anything at all, if the threat is only to take place if something else happens first, and in this case he's saying, if the President, Supreme Court, and Congress continues to oppress white people, then, there would have to be might have to be some revengeance. Well, that's not imminent. And finally, under circumstances where the illegality might occur, well, there's no telling. Again, we don't get to that in the Brandenburg case because we don't even know what this person was advocating, if he was advocating at all. So those are the elements of incitement. Brandenburg is your key case for incitement. And once we go through a couple of these different areas, I'll post definitely some review questions that we can talk about, how to apply that, in practice on an exam. I hope that helps on incitement. Again, I'm going to keep these videos pretty short so you can just watch them one at a time. And next up, we'll review this and then talk about fighting words. We'll do the fighting words second, the second category of unprotected speech. So see you in a little while with that.